Top of the morning, everybody. Eric Soulbox out in the shop this morning, admiring my 450 Himalayan. Look at this bad boy. I just put the not the WRS screen. I took the WRS screen off and replaced it with the big boy Givy. This definitely gives a lot more wind protection, and it looks cool too. Not my ideal screen. I actually like the WRS Touring. It's a bit shorter, but for winter, I think I'm going to keep this and definitely run it. So my first thoughts on it riding with this screen off-road was that I didn't necessarily like it because the top line here, you're either, like if you're looking through it, it's not very good. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's just this line is right directly in my line of sight of where I want to be looking when I'm riding off-road. And so, yeah, it's all right. But on the freeway, man, 70 miles an hour is just a dream with that thing on there. Little bit of buffeting, but it's not like that really bad buffeting. It's more of just kind of, it's real subtle. And I think it's just because it's trying to do a lot, you know. You see these new screens, manufacturers are even starting to figure it out. KTM with the new 390, it's got that little slot in the screen for that little hole that's right here. For those of you who don't know what that's about, what that does is it equalizes the air pressure on both sides of the screen. And so by letting a little bit get through, it equalizes the pressure on the back side of it, and voila, no more buffeting. So that's what that is for. I actually was thinking, you know, the buffeting isn't bad with this. It's very, very minor, but you know what? A small hole here and just let a little bit more air through would probably take care of that. I just don't really want to be the guy cutting a hole in my brand new screen that I just paid for. Although I will say I think that's a $125 screen, I think is what I paid for that. It's not terribly expensive. I've been through a slew of them so far. I think that's the fourth screen that's been on this motorcycle. The WRS Touring is the perfect screen for this bike, because it does it all. I like that screen a lot, but for winter, I think I'm going to go ahead and run the Givy. So anyway, hey, let's take a look at these beautiful Soulbox panniers. For people that are unfamiliar with my work, a lot of people don't know how this latch works. So what this is, it's a rotary latch. So when it's locked, there's a fin that comes up. It makes it so that you can't do the rotary latch. But how this works is you twist and then you pull back on it, and that's how you open up the box. So the hinges on my boxes, I pay a lot of money for these hinges. They're adjustable. You can put more tension in the hinge. Actually, I just finished resetting these ones. I put a little more into it, just a little hex key. And you only really have to do one of the two to put enough into it to get it to stay exactly where you want it. If you really dial it in, you can set it so that when you get it to about here, you can let go and it'll drop almost like it's on hydraulics. Just very, very slowly drop back down. Seal here. No issues with water. People always ask me, are they waterproof? And I always answer, nothing is waterproof. Water always wins. You drop this bike in a creek, you're on your own. But I live in the Pacific Northwest. I ride in a lot of rain. And if you're going to end up with moisture in the box, ironically, what it actually generally tends to be is the moisture's coming from, you've put something wet in there, and now the moisture's coming out of whatever that is, and it's condensing in the box. So if you put something with any moisture in it and leave it in the sun, all of a sudden you've got condensation on the inside of it, right? So, but rainwater, yeah, no, not gonna happen. So anyway, a very nice high quality pannier at a reasonable price. And I'm building more of them now, so if you want a set of them, hit me up. So anyway, why do I think the Himalayan 450 is the best adventure bike built so far? Mostly because it's about sweet spot, right? This bike hits more sweet spot than anything else produced so far. I haven't ridden every single motorcycle out there, but I've owned a lot of adventure motorcycles, and I just love how this bike, it just hits more sweet spot than everybody else. It's never going to be an RT on the freeway, right? But it is a very, very comfortable bike and a good place to be on the freeway, especially with the bigger windscreen, like 70 miles an hour. I do have the cruise control on this bike now. set it and forget it. You hop on the freeway going 70 miles an hour, set the cruise control, and it's like riding butter. Like, it's a single, but it is incredibly smooth. All motorcycles are going to vibrate to some degree, but this one certainly isn't bad. It's way better than a KLR by a long shot. But then you take this bike off-road, and in my opinion, by far, this is the best adventure bike, true adventure bike for off-road. The best that's been produced so far. This bike, the way that they built it is truly remarkable. Like, it still has over 9 inches of ground clearance, but the way that they kind of condensed everything into a small package, there's no linkage underneath of it. It's just beautiful the way that they did this. I very much like this bike off-road. I just sold off my 701, and the reason being is that this bike just does everything better than the 701 did. It does everything better than a KLR does. And it's $1,000 less than a KLR, which just absolutely blows my mind. So back to the sweet spot. This bike just does everything. Like everybody always said about a KLR, it does everything. It just doesn't do any of it well. Well, this does everything. It does everything really, really quite well. Way better than it ought to for the money, that's for sure. So anyway, if you haven't ridden the Himalayan 450, I would definitely urge you, find yourself a dealership and go ride this motorcycle because it's truly remarkable. I was watching Chronicles of Solid this morning, so he's got one of these, and he just bought himself an 800 GS, and now he's trying to decide which one he wants to keep. My money is that he sells off the 800 GS, even though he just bought it. So he did a video this morning I was watching about riding the two bikes back-to-back off-road, and from what I could see, what he learned very quickly is that this bike is way better off-road than that 800's ever going to be. It's so sure-footed. You're definitely, I'm 6 foot tall, and with the seat in the high position, like I'm flat foot on the ground, like I can turn it around. It's got a sharp turning radius, way better than the 701 Enduro turning radius, by the way. And that bike, you were sitting so high up off of the ground with suspension that you're never going to need. Like, this gives you the sweet spot suspension-wise by a long shot. Like, it's the best out-of-box suspension I've ever ridden with. Like the 701, I paid a lot of money for top-shelf suspension that didn't do what I needed it to do. Like, I'm not going to go out and jump a fleet of buses. Like, if I had to choose a bike to do that, to jump a fleet of buses, yeah, I would choose the 701 over this. But what I want this bike to do is pick up chop off-road, like mud puddles and stuff. This suspension does that way better than the 701 did, and the reason being is the 701 was so stiff. Even with everything set as soft as I could possibly make it, this bike with no adjustability, apart from, you can adjust the preload in the rear spring, but just straight out of the box, it's way better than the 701 ever was. So, they just hit the sweet spot in so many different ways. The brakes, the 701 has Brembos, and the Brembos were just phenomenal brakes. These are actually built by Brembo also, and they feel a lot like the 701 brakes, but just not quite. It's like the 701 brakes, but for more the layperson. These are incredibly good. I've got no complaint about them. Very, very good braking. The motor is super, super smooth. The suspension is really good, way better than it ought to be. What else can I say about this? Man, apart from, and what I'm also watching is, what I'm really after is the community. The community that was around the KLR 650 was something that I was very much involved in for a very long period of time. Was actually pretty well known in that community. Sold a lot of panniers for the KLR 650s. I moderate several groups on Facebook. Really, really love that bike. But this is like the modern day KLR 650, but just way better. This is the bike that Gen 3 KLR 650 honestly should have been, and Kawasaki really dropped the ball because they owned that part of the segment of the marketplace. And you know, somebody came along behind him and just did a much better job. And that is this bike. If you haven't ridden one, get on one and go ride it. But my point is the community around this bike is starting to spring up, which I really enjoy. The aftermarket for this bike is really starting to spring up. There's just tons of stuff starting to become available. And the thing is, the parts for this bike, a lot of that stuff is coming out of India also and very, very reasonably priced. So much like a KLR, you can make this bike what you want it to be, which is one of the things I really loved about the KLR for a long time. But the KLR always needed a 6-speed transmission. Everybody knew it except for apparently Kawasaki because they never did anything about it. This has the best gearing of probably any motorcycle I've ever owned. It's so spot on perfectly. Like you can ride this off-road on technical stuff and first gear is plenty low. It doesn't have the gap between first and second like a KLR. I used to always joke that on a KLR, like you could park a semi-truck between first and second on a KLR. This bike doesn't have that. You know, first and second are both completely usable off-road. Way better. And it's got a 6-speed that's like an overdrive on the freeway. I found myself riding this bike on the freeway forgetting, like I'm in 5th gear and I think, man, I'm doing great. In 5th gear on the freeway doing 70 miles an hour, this bike is better than a KLR. And you still got one more gear, right? So anyway, I'm going to get to work building some panniers now, but I just thought I would take a moment to talk about why I think this is the best adventure bike that's been built so far. So please do comment below. What do you think is the best bike built so far? I'd really like to hear your opinion on it. So anyway, ride safe, everybody. Eric Soulbox, I will talk to you soon.